Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction options. Building.
Awaiting acknowledged.
Comrade, acknowledged. Report
Construction
affirmative.
complete. Construction options. Building.
Vehicle reporting. Awaiting orders.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction complete. New construction options. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Very well. Yes, sir.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
New construction options. Building.
Waiting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction complete. Building. Unit ready. Building.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Construction complete. New construction options. Building. Unit ready. Building.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Waiting order. Wait.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative.
Unit ready. Construction complete.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Construction complete. Building. Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Awaiting.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Affirmative.
New construction options.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir.
Building.
Comrade.
Unit ready.
Comrade. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Yes, acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Construction
Comrade,
complete.
acknowledged.
Cannot deploy here.
Yes,
Construction options.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building prepared. On hold.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit prepared.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
yes, sir. Waiting. Affirmative.
Spy
Acknowledged.
plane ready. Select target. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Awaiting orders.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Prepared. Unit prepared.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Prepared.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Waiting.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Unit prepared.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Report
funds.
acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Vehicle report.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Prepared.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Comrade. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes,
prepared.
sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Yes, acknowledged. Comrade.
Prepared.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Waiting order.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Ready.
Acknowledged.
Waiting orders. Acknowledged.
Select target.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Comrade.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting order.
Acknowledged. Waiting
Yes,
orders.
sir.
Waiting order.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Unit
Comrade.
lost.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building. On hold. Cancel.
Yes, affirmative.
Construction complete.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
New construction options. Building. Preparing.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Construction complete. Building. Unit
Acknowledged.
prepared.
Yes, sir.
Spy plane
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Yes,
Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Select target. Unit ready. Building.
comrade. Affirmative.
Vehicle affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Prepare.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Awaiting order.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, affirmative. Affirmative. Waiting order.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Waiting.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. 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 Comrade. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative.
Building.
Comrade. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders.
Skycraft ready.
Affirmative.
Prepare.
Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative.
Unable to comply. Building in progress. Unit ready. Unit prepared. Building.
Yes, sir.
Yes, affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Report acknowledged.
Waiting.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Reporting acknowledged.
Select target. Prepare.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Waiting order. Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit prepared.
Yes, acknowledged. Comrade, acknowledged.
Prepare.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Awaiting order.
Comrade.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Unit
acknowledged.
prepared. Select target.
Yes,
Reinforcements have
affirmative.
arrived.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Comrade.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Prepare.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Report agreed. Of course. Yes, sir.
Waiting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Prepare.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Skyplane ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Select target.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Waiting order. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Waiting orders. Agreed.
Prepare.
Waiting order.
Acknowledged.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes.
Unit prepared.
Acknowledged.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. 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 Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle report. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building. Select target.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Ready and waiting.
Very well.
Prepare.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Select target.
Vehicle
Reinforcements
report.
have
Waiting.
arrived.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit prepared.
Waiting order. Comrade.
Prepare.
Affirmative. Comrade. Affirmative. Comrade. Acknowledged.
Unit prepared. Structure sold. Structure sold.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Spy plane ready. Building. On hold. Cancel. Preparing. Unit prepared.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Prepared.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Comrade.
Vehicle reporting.
Waiting
Unit
order.
prepared.
Acknowledged.
Preparing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Preparing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
prepared.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Awaiting
Prepare.
order. Affirmative.
Comrade.
Unit prepared.
Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Reporting. Very well.
Preparing.
Affirmative.
Very well.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
prepared.
Yes, sir. At once.
Spy plane
Very
ready.
well. Yes, sir.
Select target.
Reporting. Of course. At once. Agreed.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Very well. Reporting. Yes, sir. Very well. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Comrade.
Unit
Affirmative.
speed upgraded.
Awaiting orders.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Waiting order.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders.
Select target.
Yes, sir.
Reinforcements have
Affirmative.
arrived.
Report very well. At once. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Spy plane
Reporting.
ready.
Acknowledge. Acknowledge.
Select target.
Ready and waiting. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Acknowledge.
Unit
Reporting.
lost.
Very
Unit
good.
lost.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. 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 Yes, affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Acknowledged. Agreed. Yes, sir. Very well. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Affirmative.
Waiting on. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Acknowledged.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Reporting. Very well.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Spy plane ready.
Reporting.
Unit
Reporting.
lost. Unit lost. Select target. Unit lost. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Agreed. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Vehicle report.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Comrade.
lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative.
Waiting order.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Spy plane ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Comrade.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Waiting orders. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Awaiting order. Affirmative. Vehicle affirmative. Reporting.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Select target. Reinforcements have arrived. Select target.
Await. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Ready and waiting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Agreed. Affirmative. Awaiting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders.
Unit lost.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Very well.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Waiting order. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ready Ready and waiting.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Reporting.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Ready and waiting.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Yes.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Affirmative. Awaiting.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Reporting.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Affirmative.
Waiting order.
Acknowledged.
Acknowledged.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Waiting order.
Spy
Yes, sir.
plane ready.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Very well.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Acknowledged.
Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Vehicle report.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting.
Acknowledged.
Yes,
Unit
sir.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Vehicle report.
Yes, sir. Reporting.
Unit
Of course.
Unit lost.
Vehicle reporting.
Acknowledged. Comrade. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes,
lost.
sir.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit
Yes,
lost.
sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Vehicle report.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Our base is under attack.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Comrade, affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Report. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Waiting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Select target. Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Waiting order. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Select target. Reinforcements have arrived.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Spy
Waiting
plane
order.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Select target.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Repair.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building. Unit repaired. Structure sold.
Reporting.
Repaired.
At once. Acknowledged. Agreed. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Waiting orders. Yes, sir. Reporting.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Waiting.
repaired.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired. Structure sold.
Waiting very well.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building. Unit repaired. Spy plane ready. Select target.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Comrade. Affirmative. Reporting.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Ready and waiting. Agreed. Reporting. Agreed. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Spy plane
At once.
ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Ready and waiting. Very well.
Select target. Select target. Reinforcements have arrived.
Reporting.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. At once. Agreed. Agreed. At once. Very well. Agreed. Very well. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Of course. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Agreed. Very well. Very well. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit
Agreed.
lost.
At once.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit
Reporting.
lost.
Affirmative. Waiting orders.
Unit lost.
Waiting orders. Acknowledged.
Unit
Comrade.
lost.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Waiting orders. Very well. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Comrade.
lost.
Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Waiting.
Spy plane
Affirmative.
ready.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Waiting orders.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Very well. Of course.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Reporting.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative.
Reporting. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Mission accomplished.